Hello and a very warm welcome to the Analyst of Vajiram and Ravi dated 5th of April. Through this session, you will gain good understanding about the following current affair articles that are derived from the Hindu and Indian Express. Coming to the first topic, here we will try to gain an extensive understanding about the missile systems of India, as recently Agni Prime has been successfully test fired. Then in the second topic, we will read about the implications that are imposed on Russian oil and how they have been dodged with the help of Laundromat countries. Then we will understand a very important economic topic. This is exchange traded currency derivatives. This particular topic becoming one of the most important topics to be covered for UPSC examination. Then we will read about how dark energy is different from dark matter and what are both of them. Then we will read how allotments of party symbols are made in India depending upon the national party and the state party. And finally, we will wind up the discussion by having interesting read about some of the most important current affair topics for the upcoming examination under the heading of Prelims Snippet. So let's get started. So hello again, and in this first article we will extensively cover and understand the missile systems that are operant in India. This is coming with a context of the successful test firing of Agni Prime missile. We will also read about Agni Prime missile in detail over here. So this is the context, and this particular missile has been successfully launched and flight tested where? In the Abdul Kalam Island, which is also previously known as the Wheeler Island. Where is Wheeler Island or Abdul Kalam Island located? It is located to the south of Chandipur beach in the state of Odisha. So remember this fact as well. Moving to the missile systems of India, see, India has got a very wide spectrum and armor of missiles, and not just from now, even from the ancient times. And we have got multiple capabilities right now in the form of multiple ranges, range variations, basis variations, speed variations, fuel variations. So we have got multiple types of missiles. When you talk about the ranges, we have got range from 80 kilometers to more than 5,000 kilometers range worth missiles right now. But for India, this missile technology was not a 21st century concept. Rather, we have been acquainted about it ever since the Vedic times. It has been mentioned in epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana that previously we have been using missiles known as astras. And those astras were driven by certain commands which are known as mantras. This is very similar to how our today's missiles operate. They operate on the basis of software commands that are given to them. Previously, we had the astras and the mantras combo. And they have been mentioned in some of the epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana. Then came the inception of the first ever scientific missile ever in India, and this came with Hyder Ali's son Tipu Sultan. So in 18th century, he imported the first ever rockets and deployed them in the Anglo-Mysore wars. So we saw that we have been using scientific rockets ever since 18th century. Then once the colonial period started, a lot of development was not seen in this era, in this missile development technology, because of the colonial spirits. They never wanted us to grow technologically. So obviously little to no development was seen. But as the moment we realized independence, that is when we also realized that we need to strengthen up, to bolster up our armor in order to preserve the security and the sovereignty of the country. So therefore, we ruthlessly started pursuing the missile development programs. All of this started with the commencement of a premier organization responsible for extensively conducting research and development in the field of defense. This is DRDO, which is under the Ministry of Defense, and this body was formed in the year 1958. And once this body got formed, upon pursuing multiple research and development, India finally started pursuing extensive missile creation projects. The first one was Integrated Guided Missile Development Program. It is the brainchild of our president, of our former president APJ Abdul Kalam, who is also known as the Missile Man of India. What was the need of such extensive program? The need was the backlash that we attracted from the MTCR regime, Missile Technology Control Regime, which forbidded and prohibited any technology, any missile technology to go into India. And therefore, the need was to become self-reliant in developing our own indigenous technologies for the development of missiles. So it was pioneer and it was headed by APJ Abdul Kalam, and it led to creation of multiple types of missiles that we even see today, from Prithvi to Akash to Nag, Trishul and Agni. Before diving into each of them, let me also tell you the starting year. The starting year is 1982 and it lasted till 2012. This was a time period for the development of such missiles under the IGM-DP program. Now obviously, what were the objective? To create indigenous missiles with indigenous technology and indigenous capabilities, and also to produce a comprehensive range of missiles, which means missiles which can fire surface to surface, surface to air, could be anti-tank as well. So comprehensive range was created. If you talk about the Prithvi missile was a short range surface to surface missile having a range only up to 150, and the other variants had range up to 350 kilometers only. Then came the Akash missile. This was a surface to air missile. Then came the Nag missile. This was anti-tank missile. Which was created to basically attack the tanks in a serpentine motion. Then there was Trishul. This was again a surface to air missile, and then comes the Agni series. Agni series 1, 2 and 3 variants were generated under this program only, that is before the year 2012. They were having their own extended range capacities. It all started from Agni 1, then 2, then 3, but one thing you have to remember, that Agni series is a ballistic missile. What are ballistic missiles? We'll be reading it later, but Agni series was a ballistic missile, and all of them essentially worked on subsonic speeds. What is subsonic? I'll tell you later, but first of all understand the basics about these missiles. Then came the next project established in 1998, jointly developed by DRDO and Russia. So this was a joint project between the two countries in order to develop technology. In fact, the upcoming technology, the BrahMos, would be world's fastest supersonic missile to be ever created. And this was created with the augmentation of Indian capabilities and Russian capabilities. So the next project was the BrahMos Aerospace Joint Venture. Coming to the next project, this came in the very next year, 1999. This is Indian Ballistic Missile Defense Program. Is basically to create two-tiered system. One that would attack inside the atmosphere, and one that could go above and beyond the atmosphere as well. And so we started creating multiple varieties of ballistic missiles. These were the Prithvi missile, the Pradyumna missile, the Ashwin ballistic missile, the Advanced Air Defense missile. So all of these missiles got created, ballistic missiles, after 1999. Now some of the independent projects started coming up in the form of DRDO's outcome projects. So it all started from 2008. After the completion of this particular project, it essentially completed from 2000 till up to 2008, but in 2012 was the last missile that was created. So here comes a lot of independent projects. For example, extending the Agni series. So Agni 5 and Agni 4 were created from this. Then K series missile were created. Hypersonic technology demonstrator vehicles were created. We will be looking at them. But these are some of the missiles and the projects responsible for them, which can tell us how the missiles got evolved in our country. Now, to understand the different variants of missile that India has, we first have to understand the basics, that is, what are the different types of missiles. On the basis of multiple parameters, they can be broadly divided. First of all, on the basis of speed, that is, how fast can your missile move. It is judged on the basis of how is its speed as compared to the speed of the sound in air. So that is denoted by Mach number. So if any missile is moving equals to the speed of the sound, then the Mach number would be 1. So on the basis of speed, missiles can be divided into subsonic, supersonic and hypersonic missile. Subsonic missiles are those which fly at a speed or which move at a speed slower than the speed of the sound. So for example, the preliminary missiles that we created, the Akash missile, the Prithvi missile, these are the examples of subsonic. Then we have got supersonic, one which moves beyond and more faster than the speed of the sound. So obviously the range would be from Mach 1 till Mach 4. Obviously it is supersonic because it is less than Mach 5. But those missiles which can travel at a speed of 5 times the speed of sound, they are categorized as hypersonic missiles. A point to be noted is that India has not got any hypersonic missile yet. We are under development. The second variant of BrahMos will come out, and whenever it will come out, it will be the first ever hypersonic missile of India. So what is the supersonic missile of India? Can you tell? I have already told you. What is the supersonic missile of India? In fact, this is also that missile which is world's fastest supersonic missile. So please name a supersonic missile of India. Now, coming to the second differentiation, this is on the basis of trajectory. What is the path and how is the rocket, how is this missile moving from one place to another? One way would be to create a ballistic missile which will follow the principle of free fall. So free fall meaning that once it is fired, you can forget about it, and then it will cover its own parabolic path and reach the target. This is a typical ballistic missile. The Agni series that you see are all of them ballistic missiles. Of course, they are very easy to be predicted as their entire path can be traced very easily. So they will not be efficient against early warning systems. That is one challenge with ballistic missile, but of course they are nuclearly fueled and they are very, very powerful. So we have got ballistic missiles in the form of Agni range. Then talking about the cruise missiles, these are the ones which hover with a control speed. Their speed is controlled by the propellant. So therefore they are used to attack a target by cruising along the path. Can you see how it dodges the obstacles, which means it is controlled by something. Its speed is under control. It is not under the it is not under the free fall gravity exposure. So therefore this is known as the cruise missile. Can you name a cruise missile of India? BrahMos is a cruise missile of India, and Nirbhay is also a cruise missile of India. Of course, Nirbhay is short ranged with short speed, it is subsonic in nature, and BrahMos is supersonic. Now, coming to next one, which has also been asked in UPSC examination, Prelims examination 2022, the fractional orbital bombardment system. As the name suggests, something is moving out of its orbit and for a small amount of time it is going beyond the trajectory. That is, it is trying to escape the predicted trajectory. So what if, let's say, this ballistic missile can be made to evade the sensors and reach up to the low Earth orbit? The moment it goes to the low Earth orbit, it becomes invisible to the early warning system or to the radar systems of the enemy target, and therefore for a fraction of a second, for some amount of time, it will appear as if this has disappeared, and therefore it will become very easy to dodge this early warning system and attack the target efficiently. This is the fractional orbital bombardment system. Which two countries have this? First is Russia. Russia built up this technology in 1970s, and the second one is China. Now, of course, I have talked about multiple ballistic missiles. We have Prahar, we have BrahMos, we have Prithvi, we have Agni, we have Nirbhay, we have Agni, multiple series of Agni and multiple variants of it. So, we have talked about these two variations of missile. Now, of course, depending upon the source and depending upon the target, the platform of both of them also determines the type of missiles. First of all, we have got surface to surface missile. So, for example, the ballistic missiles are essentially your surface to surface missile. For example, the Prithvi missile or the Agni missile or the BrahMos missile, all of them move from surface to surface. Second is surface to air. So have we heard about the Akash missile, the Trishul missile? All of them start from the surface and then they attack the target on the air. Then there is air to surface missile as well. Helena anti-tank missile, which is fired from a helicopter, that is from an aerial borne source. So this is the Rudra along with Helena would form an air to surface ballistic missile duo. Then air to air can be done with the help of Astra, ship to ship can be done with the help of BrahMos, ship to air can be done with the help of Barak 8. Submarine launched missiles are also there. For example, the K-15 submarine class missiles that can also be deployed. So basically this is on the basis of launch mode we have distinguished the missiles. Now talking about the Agni Prime missile, which is the news in this particular article. Agni Prime missile is basically an upgraded version of the existing Agni series. It is upgraded with better and modern navigation technologies, and it will be able to have more orientation, more hovering capability, more control capabilities. So this is an upgraded version. And what is the range of Agni Prime missile? It is somewhere about 100, 1000 to 2000 kilometer range, which means it is a medium range missile. Now, It can also have nuclear weapon capabilities, something that all of the Agni series didn't have. So essentially what Agni Prime intends to do is to replace the Agni 1 and Agni 2. Both of them were short ranged and they will now be upgraded and replaced by the Agni Prime missile. So please remember, the statement can also come that Agni Prime is going to replace Agni 2 and Agni 3. That would be wrong. It is going to replace Agni 1 and Agni 2. Now, this topic has been very important because PYQ have appeared multiple times about the ballistic missile technology in the defense sector. So first of all, let's try to solve UPSC Prelims 2023 question. Ballistic missiles are jet propelled at subsonic speeds. Is ballistic missile propelled at subsonic speed? Yes, it is pretty much possible. But is it jet propelled? Jet propelled means the flight is controlled. Ballistic missiles are not controlled, the cruise missiles are controlled instead. So therefore, this statement is incorrect. Next, Agni 5 is a medium range supersonic cruise missile, while BrahMos is a solid fuel intercontinental ballistic missile. The only intercontinental ballistic missile we have is the Agni 5, range 5, having capability or having range capability of more than 5,000 kilometers. In order to drive it to such a huge extent, it is driven by cryogenic fuel, which is made up of liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. This is about Agni 5. This is the only intercontinental ballistic missile. So again, both of these statements have been shuffled. Again, this is incorrect. So answer is D. Now, can you also try to attempt question number 2 over here and let me know the answers in the comment section. In the next topic, we will be reading about the sanctions on Russian oil and what are the laundromats country. So what is the context? That in a visit to India, US officials have declared that no sanctions will be attracted against India for buying and refining the Russian oil. Why have I boldened the refining term? I will be explaining you in this topic. And price aim, I'll be teaching you this as well. The price aim, which is one of the sanctions put forward by these countries against the Russia, is aimed at limiting Russia's revenue. So this intention is also declared here. Now, first of all, let us understand the context. So ever since the invasion of Ukraine by the Russia has happened, ever since then, it has attracted a lot of sanctions from the developed countries, especially USA and the G7 countries. Now, one more fascinating trend was observed, that ever since this sanction came into place, specifically some countries, for example India, observed that a lot of Russian oil got imported into them. And eventually, if you observe the graph, you will see that how after the sanctions, which actually happened in somewhere about 2022, the Russian oil has actually increased, its share in the market has actually increased, which is very surprising because despite the USA sanctions on the oil, the share of the Russian oil is still increasing. What are the reasons? We'll understand that. So first of all, what factors led to the growth in Indian import of Russian oil? Why did we start importing a lot of Russian oil? There are two reasons behind this. First of all, the sanctions that were administered or imposed upon the Russian oil by the G7 countries. So a lot of G7 countries came together and they forbade the import of Russian energy, for example any product of energy, for example the coal, the natural gas, the petroleum, all of that was imposed ban on the for their imports in the G7 countries. Then not only that, they also created a price cap coalition. This price cap coalition says that any import coming or any import of Russian oil should not be priced higher than $60 per barrel. This limit, in fact this is the maximum limit set for them, which means that Russian oil cannot fluctuate their prices to more than $60 if they were to be imported. Otherwise, the countries who are importing at more than this rate would be attracting sanctions from the price cap coalition countries. What are these price cap coalition countries? We'll be reading. But what happened, that Russia of course incurred a lot of losses because of these sanctions. So they tried to compensate. Russia tried to compensate it by offering discounted prices for purchase of their oil, their natural gas and their energy products to the other countries which were import dependent on them. For example, there was Turkey, there was China, there was India. So Russia targeted in particular these countries and offered them heavy discount on the purchase of Russian oil. So therefore, we started importing a lot of, in fact, since 2022, the import of Russian oil in India has grown up to 10 times. So much so is the influence of this Russian policy, and this has eventually led to the growth of Russian oil share in the overall oil market. Now, what is price cap coalition? Can we please understand this? So price cap coalition is basically a coalition created by the countries which are trying to impose sanction on the Russia. Why? Because they don't want Russia to practice what it has been practicing since now, that is the annexation of Ukraine and the atrocities that it does on Ukraine. In order to inhibit that, they are trying to inhibit their revenue growth, and a major chunk of their revenue is actually coming from the energy products that they are generating, or they are importing to other nations, exporting to other nations. So obviously these countries came together, specifically the G7 countries like Australia, Canada, European Union, Japan, United Kingdom and United States. These developed countries came together, formed a coalition and said that we are imposing a maximum price of $60 a barrel of oil transported by vessels owned or insured by the coalition countries to the third party countries. So which means that you cannot exceed this maximum limit so that it doesn't benefit the Russian oil companies. In fact, some of the countries like European Union, for example, USA, Canada, they have also gone to the extent of imposing complete ban on the import of Russian coal, Russian natural gas and Russian oil. So this is the price cap coalition. Of course, it will be having adverse implications on Russia. And why price cap coalition called for restricting or called for targeting their energy exports? Because a huge chunk of Russian revenue is coming from their energy export. In fact, if you talk about the stats, it is world's third largest oil producer after Saudi Arabia and USA. It is the largest exporter of crude oil and the refined oil products. So again, a huge chunk of revenue is coming actually from exporting the oil products. Then it also supplies 1/3 of the total natural gas which is consumed by Europe, especially around the UK region. So therefore, it calls upon the fact that we have to stifle their energy exports in order to stifle their economy, which will make them pursue the political dictations that these developed countries are trying to make. So how all of this backfired to the price cap coalition? Because as you can see from the graph, that instead of restricting the overall trade of the Russian oil, it has in fact caused escalation of the Russian oil share in the overall global oil share in the world. And this has happened because the price cap coalition has been countered by some of the Russian policies and also by what we know as the laundromat countries. So first of all, let's understand laundromat. Laundromat is another name of something which is whitewashing the main source. So which means, let's say I have taken up oil from Russia, I have imported oil from Russia, then I have created refined products in my country, and then I am exporting it to countries which are needing these refined products, for example, countries of European Union, for example, USA. And I am telling them these refined products are made up of oil that is derived from somewhere else and not from Russia. So eventually, I am giving a boost to the Russian economy only, because at the end of the day, I am purchasing their oil itself. So therefore, what I am doing is I am whitewashing the original source. This is a fraudulent practice, of course. So this has been mentioned by the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, the CREA, in their report, that there are 5 countries which are undergoing this, which are following up this process, and they are termed as laundromat countries. Is India part of it? Yes, and it takes a huge chunk of the laundromat space. So it is countries like India, China, UAE, Singapore, Turkey, which are importing cheap crude oil prices from Russia. Why? Because of Russian policy. They are allowing us to purchase their oil in very discounted rate. So we are purchasing it from there, creating refined oil products and then selling it to the price cap coalition countries, the developed countries or the other countries. So these are the laundromat countries, and with the help of the laundromat country, the Russia was able to dodge the sanctions, especially the oil sanctions that were imposed on it. So as you can see, India's performance in the laundromat share, India is in fact the largest consumer or the largest importer of the Russian oil in the last 2 years, and also the largest exporter of the refined products that are created using Russian oil. So it has the largest share, 3.7% of the total monthly exports of the oil product that are made to EU are from India, and they are creating these refined products using what? Using the Russian oil. So this is the concept of laundromat. Now one more concept that I want to teach, which is important for prelims point of view, because because a lot many times questions were asked on this, is about the oil benchmarks that the world has. Now, there are different grades of oil all across the world depending upon the geography. If you talk about the if you talk about the tropical areas, there you will see extensive heat, and there you will also see the oil which is the most polluting in nature because it has got the highest amount of sulfur content. Then as you move towards the pole, you will find more sweet kind of oil which has got less, not nil, but less sulfur content. So this zone has got oil which is having highest sulfur content, and as you move towards the cooler regions, they have lower sulfur content, which means that this region has sour oil, and these regions, the above polar regions, have got sweet oil sources. Now, can you also name some of the oil benchmarks? Yes. So, one is prevalent in the USA region. This is the West Texas Intermediate. This question has been asked in the examination. Then the Brent crude oil. Brent crude oil is the sweetest among all because it is in the northernmost part, right? So therefore, Brent crude oil is also responsible for giving energy security, and it is one of the most exported and one of the most costliest, expensive oils out there, which with minimal sulfur content. If anything has minimal sulfur content, it is least polluting, which is one of the concerns for the nations across the world right now. And then you will see the Basra light. You will see the Basra range in Iraq and in some parts of Iran, and then you will see the Dubai variant. Dubai variant is found somewhere over here. So these are some of the oil benchmarks. Why is this important? Because as you can see from PYQ, all these questions have been asked. Can you answer this question for me? Brent crude oil is frequently referred to in the news. What does this term imply? So kindly try to answer this question. Now moving on to a very interesting and most important economic concept of the day. This is the exchange traded currency derivatives. Why this has been in news? Because yesterday RBI published a circular saying that it has deferred the date for which certain exchange traded currency derivatives norms were to be followed. So actually the stipulated date was 5th of April, that is today, but it was deferred for the interest of the stock market and for the interest of the economy, but it is deferred. It is going to happen soon again. So what is exchange traded currency derivatives? In order to understand this seemingly complicated term, we will dissect it into simple terms. First of all, we will understand what do you mean by the concept of derivative. So derivatives in simple terms is nothing but a financial contract where the buyer and the seller, they come and they agree to buy a particular asset at a specific time and at a specific price. This contract is made, but this contract is made on the lieu of an asset. This asset could be anything. It could be a commodity, it could be a stock, it could be currencies as well. So when these derivative, basically these financial contract or these assets derive their value from the underlying assets. These underlying assets could be, let's say, the prices of commodity, for example, oil, gold, silver, wheat, etc. So on the basis of these underlying asset prices, these financial contracts are made, these derivatives are made. It can also be on the basis of the score and the performance of stock market and the exchange rate between the currencies. So basically, let's say we both are in contract and we have told to each other that on today is 5th of April and on, let's say, 5th of April 2025, I will be purchasing 5 kgs of rice from you. No matter how the then prices would be, I am declaring the price right now that I will be purchasing it at, let's say, some X amount, X rupees per kg amount, and I will be assuring that I am purchasing it in the same amount. Now, why do we need this kind of derivative market then? It is needed to hedge against any uncertainty. So what if the next year the stock prices fall down, or the currency exchange rate falls down, or let's say the wheat prices fall down? So this is kind of uncertainty which the buyer or the seller would be facing and the economy would be facing in large. To secure against those kind of uncertainty and risk, we kind of try to hedge this risk with the help of pre-agreements. So these pre-agreements are known as the derivatives. If we are performing these derivatives, or if the underlying asset is a currency, then this is known as a currency derivative. Now, I have already told you what is the benefit of what is the benefit of having derivatives or applying in derivatives. It basically provides risk management of the assets, especially against hedging the risk against any uncertain event, especially in the future time. Now, what are the modes of this trade? How can I purchase such derivatives? There are two modes. One is the direct mode. I contact any broker and I ask him to connect to somebody else who's in need. So we'll have a quicker buyer to seller contract. But this is with the help of an intermediary, and this is not a centralized, standardized measure. So this is known as the over the counter. This is known as over the counter method, or rather the direct method of trading the derivative. But what if I am going to the stock market or to a centralized or standardized exchange system, let's say the National Stock Exchange or the Bombay Stock Exchange, and I'm purchasing it from there only? Then that will be more safer method, and these are known as purchasing the derivatives via exchange trades. So these kind of derivatives would be known as exchange traded derivatives. Of course, currencies are very important assets. They cannot be traded hand to hand like over the counter on over the counter processes. Therefore, currency derivatives are generally purchased through exchange traded mechanisms only, which means enlisting, they are already enlisted in some of the exchange trades like your National Stock Exchange and the Bombay Stock Exchange, and you'll be purchasing it from there. Okay, so this basically counters the risk. Which of them would be more risky? Over the counter would be more risky, because here a middleman is involved, subjectivity and the understanding between two parties involved, and that is subjected to change over the time. So it will be difficult to settle down at the right and at the fair prices. On the other hand, a standardized method of exchange, for example a National Stock Exchange, would enable that proper and fair settlement would be done in the right time. Okay, so these are the modes of trade of what? The derivatives. Now talking about the different type of derivative contracts. So first of all, the futures contract, then there is forward contract, there is swaps, there's options. Might seem tricky to you, but I'll try my best to simplify it for you. So first of all, futures contract. This is where, let's say, a buyer and a seller agrees with each other that they will be buying a certain asset. They will be buying it again, a certain asset, at a predetermined date and at a predetermined price. So let's say, for example, I'm a farmer and I'm trying to set up this agreement with a buyer, and the buyer promises me in lieu of growth of my crops, he will be purchasing my products, or let's say my sugarcane, for let's say Y amount per quintal. And this is irrespective of the output of my harvest. Let's say I am striking this agreement on 5th of April in this year. And in order to do away with the post-harvest losses, if it can be any, this is also a kind of risk that I will be facing as a farmer. So in order to hedge or secure myself against such risk, I will be taking up such futures derivatives, which will allow the buyer to purchase my sugarcane after the harvest at the same prices that have been declared pre-harvest when the contract was signed. So this is a kind of future contract. This is of course less risky. Now coming to the forward contract. Forward contract is very similar to that of futures contract. It's just that an intermediary is involved over here, which means this kind of transaction doesn't take place in a standardized exchange system. So there is no involvement of NSE and BSE over here. It is done hand to hand, from person to person, which means this is a kind of direct trade, over the counter trade, which is more risky as compared to futures option. But I am doing again the same thing. I am setting up a contract to buy or to purchase a certain product at a specific time at a specific rate, which are predetermined during the time of contact. Now coming to swaps, please understand this one very carefully. This is when the buyer and the seller doesn't exchange any commodity, but they exchange the long-term loans. How do you do that? Does it mean that, let's say there are two people, there is Ashnir and let's say there is Anupam, and both of them want to exchange their loan? Does it mean that the 10 lakh rupee loan that has been raised by Ashnir is going to be forwarded to Anupam and his loan is going to be forwarded to Ashnir? No, such swap won't happen. Swap would happen in the form of interest rate. So this swap is basically the interest rate swap. Allow me to make you understand this in simpler language. So what will happen? Let's say there are two types of loans. First of all, you need to know. One is the fixed term loan, which means you have to pay the interest rate that has been predetermined during while you were taking the loan. The second one is flexible rate loan, which will be having a variable interest rate. Now let's say Ashneer feels that eventually Ashneer has got this flexible loan with him, and he feels that eventually with time this interest rate will go down, which means I might have to pay lesser interest on my loan. So he will search for a fixed priced, a fixed rate loan taker. And on the other hand, let's say Anupam feels that this price, this interest rate price might increase later, so I might move according to the market only, market trend only, and he wants to swap with the flexible, or he wants to swap with the person who's having flexible interest rate loan. Essentially what is happening, they are not transferring each other's loan, but rather the interest rate, the nature of the interest rate is being swapped from a fixed rate nature to a flexible rate nature, and vice versa. So this is happening. One issue with swaps kind of contract is that if one person, let's say if Ashneer becomes defaulter, and if he is not able to pay the loan for Anupam, then he has to bear his own loans as well as the loans of Ashneer. So this is going to be one of the challenges faced by swaps contract. Next is the options contract. Now options contract is again equivalent to that of futures contract. You are basically signing up a contract to buy something at a predetermined rate at a predetermined time. Now the thing with option is that it provides you more flexibility. It provides you rights and not obligations. Under future contract, you are obligated to purchase it at certain amount of time at the same fixed rate. But in the case of options, the buyer has got two rights. First of all, the call option and the put option. In the call option, buyer basically has the right to buy anything. So he can buy anything whenever he wants, absolutely at the predetermined time, but instead of selling, he can also choose to buy. In the case of exercising put option, he can choose to sell the commodity or the asset that is with him. So basically in all these things, one common factor was that in futures, forward and swap, only buying option was there, selling option was not there. But in the options contract, there are two options with the buyer. Either he could sell the contract or sell the asset, or purchase the asset. Both of them can be done. So this is more flexible. Now talking about which of them are more standardized, which of them are listed in the national stock exchanges, these are the futures and the swaps and the options. So therefore, when we'll talk about the currency derivatives, the exchange traded currency derivatives, only these three types of derivatives will be exercised by them. That is the options, swaps and futures, not the forward. Why not forward? Because forward options are OTC, over the counter. They are traded over the counter. So therefore, they are more risky and currencies cannot be swapped like that. So I hope you've understood this concept. Now talking about the exchange traded currency derivatives. So what is the underlying asset? As I've already told you, every derivative has an underlying asset. In this particular case, underlying asset is the foreign exchange rate. Let's say $1 is equals to 70 rupees. This is the exchange rate, and this exchange rate is very, very dynamic. It keeps changing over the time. So again, there is uncertainty. Again, there is risk. So in order to hedge against this risk, what they do, they basically take up the underlying asset and they create a derivative option, a derivative contract among the two currencies basically. This is more often done by the importers and the exporters. Then it is available for only 4 pairs of currency with India. One is the rupee dollar, then is the rupee yen, then is the rupee pound, then is the rupee euro. Only 4 options are available. How many types are available? Swap option, options, futures, 3 are available. Which one is not available to it? Forward is not available because it is done over the counter. Now talking about the RBI circular and what it said. So please understand the context. What happened in the year 2018? RBI said that now there are multiple people who can purchase these futures, options and swap under the currency derivatives. Multiple people. It could be retailers who has got nothing to do with the import and export. The real-time importers and exporters who have actually got some implications in the form of this exchange rate deviation. Then again, there are multiple people. There are some prop traders as well. But RBI circular in 2018 said that there is a limit we are setting, that is of $100 million, and up to this limit you can invest in the exchange traded currency derivatives without showing us the exposure. Exposure means that you are literally exposed to the risk of the market fluctuation or the asset value fluctuation. So basically meaning that any retail trader can purchase it without showing any kind of contractual exposure. The word used over here is contractual exposure. Why? Because a contract has been signed in this case, and exposure is basically your exposure to the risk against such uncertainty of exchange rates. So till 2018, a limit was set of $100 million. Then in January this year, RBI put up a circular saying that we are setting off a cut-off date of 5th of April, and after this, nobody would be allowed to exchange via these currency derivatives if they cannot show the proof of contractual exposure to what? To the risk of foreign exchange rates. So if you are not able to show the proof of your exposure, you will not be eligible to exchange through this derivative mechanism. This proclamation was made by RBI in its circular in January. Of course, it attracted a lot of criticism because it could incur a lot of losses. Do you know that in financial year 2024, it was accounted that the overall turnover created by National Stock Exchange, about 1.46 lakh crore of it came directly from the currency derivatives only. In fact, a lot of this money came from two sources: retail traders and the prop traders. And fortunately, unfortunately, they are not directly exposed to the risk of foreign exchange rates fluctuation. So therefore, they cannot prove, which means that about 72% of the total market will directly wipe out from the currency derivative market. All of these stakeholders will go away because they will be deemed ineligible. This was one of the basic criticism attracted. Next, exchange traded derivative volume is also going to dip. According to Angel One, about 11% of the total brokerage that the company had was coming from currency derivatives only. So basically, if we are not going to have much volume, we are going to also lack the capital. We are then also going to face liquidity crunch in the market. In order to safeguard against this, RBI finally yesterday decided to defer this date to some later date, which is not announced yet. So I hope you've understood the concept of derivatives, what are currency derivatives and what are exchange traded currency derivatives. Quickly coming to the next topic, very interesting one. We are going to discover how dark energy is different from dark matter. This is in coming with context of a team of researchers who have researched and released most comprehensive 3D map of universe using dark energy spectroscopic instrument. This is also named as DESI in short. So it was with the help of this instrument they were able to range up the distances between multiple galaxies and the interplanetary distances, eventually creating a 3D image, which is one of the most comprehensive maps of the universe we have observed yet. Do you want to see the image? You are recommended to watch this video which has been published. So you can watch this virtual reality. And now, how was this image created? It was created with the help of dark energy related instrument which was able to calculate all this measurement. So let's first understand what are the basics. What is dark energy and what is dark matter? Have you ever observed them yet? No, because they are deemed to be hypothetical concepts. In fact, our universe is very, very giant. It's extremely huge, and we humans, who seemingly hold a lot of importance in the world, are just a tiny speck in this broad universe. In fact, we, along with everything else that we can observe, is only just 5% of the entire composition of the universe. The other part is a hypothetical substance which is broadly divided into dark matter comprising of 27% of the universe and dark energy which comprises of more than 60% of the universe. What is their purpose and what roles do they play in maintaining universe? So you know that the Big Bang explosion happened, and ever since then we have been observing that the universe is basically expanding. How do you know that universe is expanding? Because many times we see the redshift effect. Can anyone tell me what is the redshift effect? So there are some of the experiments which have been conducted which can tell us, and some of the observations which can tell us that universe is actually expanding, but at the same time everything seems right back in place. So there is some force which is counteracting this expansionary force and holding everything in place together. The force which is responsible for expanding the universe is known as dark energy. The force which is responsible, or the matter which is responsible for upholding all the planets, all the galaxies together, is known as dark matter. So, of course, the single largest constituent of universe, if somebody asks you, is not human, it's dark energy. Then, second largest constituent of universe is the dark matter. Then, who tends to drive the universe apart? The dark energy. Who tends to drive the universe together? It's the dark matter. Do they interact with normal matter? No. Had they been interacting with the normal matter, we would have been able to measure them at some point in time, but we were not able to do that. Therefore, it can be easily said that they do not interact with matter at all. But when it comes to dark matter, it interacts with normal matter by the force of gravity. So basically, you must have seen that some of the galaxies or stars appear more brighter as they actually are. That happens because of a lot of dark matter contents between them. This causes diffraction and refraction, which lenses out or magnifies the image of this galaxy and portraying it very, very huge in front of us. This gravitational lensing is done by hypothetical matter which has not been discovered yet. This is basically said to be the dark matter, but because of course it is interacting with light, so therefore can we say that it interacts with matter? Yes. Then dark energy can thought to be as the fifth fundamental force, and dark matter is not a force of course, but it is also not an antimatter. Antimatter of electron is known as positron. Then antimatter of hydrogen is known as antihydrogen. They do not react with matter, but we know that this one reacts with matter, and therefore we can say that it is not an antimatter. They are not even black holes, because black holes also interact with matter, they interact with light. So this is a quite quick distinction between the dark energy and dark matter. Now quickly coming to the next topic, how are symbols allocated to a political party? Issue has been going on in front of ECI. Some parties of Tamil Nadu have been denied common symbols. What are common symbols, and what actually classifies a political party to have the symbols at all? So all of this is governed not by the Representations of People Act or not by the Constitution of India, but rather by the Election Symbols Reservation and Allotment Order of 1968. It governs which symbol will be provided to which political party, and it is governed by whom? Who performs the function of allocating symbol? This is the Election Commission of India. It is of course different. The criteria are different at national level. Criteria are different for the state levels. For state levels in particular, criteria depends on two things. First of all, how much percentage of vote have you filed in, and how many seats have you secured in the legislature, and also there is some time limit under which you have to file for the application for the symbol, otherwise you wouldn't be getting it. It is very, very important in the voting process, especially in a country where literacy levels are not too high. So we tend to recognize, many of the people in fact tend to recognize any political party with the help of symbols. What if political party is not rendered with any symbol at all? It becomes very difficult for the people to identify them. Therefore, having symbols is extremely important for a functional democracy. Then what is the allotment criteria? There are multiple symbols that you can see. Different belong to different parties. If it's a recognized party, then it will be having reserved symbols. Recognized party is that which fulfills some of the criterias. Then if it is a registered but unrecognized party, then they will be allotted common symbols. So what is a registered but unrecognized party? So in India we have more than 2000 registered parties with Election Commission of India, but some of them never contest the elections, or even if they have contested the election, they fail miserably, not even collecting bare minimum votes, that is the limit is of 1%, not even able to get that much vote, and as a result of this they become registered but unrecognized parties. Therefore they get common symbols. They don't have specific symbols. Their symbols can also be duplicated by other parties. Then under the rule 10B of symbol order, it specifies concession of a common free symbol for up to 2 general elections only. This is important point again. Now coming to the current issue, what has happened? A very funny thing is happening right now. 2 political parties are struggling for symbols. The first one is NTK. It has secured in the election of 2019, it secured 3.9% vote, and in the next one it secured 6.5% of vote. The limit to designate any political party symbol is to secure 1% of vote. So of course it has fulfilled the condition. Still it has not been given the symbol that it wanted, and it has been given to some other party because it did not file in the correct time limit. So time limit issue was there. The second party is where it secured about 1.09% seat in 2019, so it was qualified for symbol. Then in the next year it secured less than 1% of the seat, that is just 0.99%. So again it was rendered ineligible for getting any recognized symbol. Talking about the distinction of parties, we know that in India we have national parties and state parties. What makes a party a national party? The fact that party secures at least 6% of the valid votes were in Lok Sabha, or at least assembly elections in 4 states. Then they must also win 4 seats in Lok Sabha from any states. The third one is it has to win 2% of the seats in Lok Sabha from at least 3 different states in the latest general election. These things you have to remember because they can be asked in prelims exam. Next, how do you designate a party a state party? Because the party has been able to secure 6% of the valid votes in that year's election, state election, they must win 1 Lok Sabha seat for every 25 seats, or at least 2 seats in the legislative assembly. Then it also needs to win at least minimum of 3% total number of seats in legislative assembly. So these are some of the designations and some of the criteria which can render a party the status of a national party, a state party. And also we have understood what is recognized party, what are recognized registered party, registered but unrecognized parties. Now let's take up the discussion on prelim snippet. We are going to read about the aging anatomy. A question has been asked in the form of science quiz in the Hindu newspaper. We read about the Cambodia mapping, we will read about a coordination center for cyber crimes, I4C, and we will read about Chabahar, etc. Now, first of all, aging anatomy. There are certain questions which have been asked and they can also be taken up by UPSC examiners. So we are taking up for our discussion. First of all, which is this protein which is essential to maintain the elasticity and firmness of our skin? It's essential to promote the production of these vital protein fiber. You have to name these protein fibers in the skin that break down over time, leading to formation of wrinkles and sagging. Something which has been taking rounds in the cosmetic industry nowadays. What people are talking about? They're talking about collagen. So the answer is collagen, and the second one is elastin. They are responsible for building elasticity in our muscles, in our skin. Next question is a term related for age-related condition characterized by decrease in brain volume, which means it's a degenerative neurological disorder. What is this? Majorly found in Western countries. This is Alzheimer's disease. Then the third question, which hormone commonly associated with aging decreases in production as individuals grow older? So which hormones decreases in humans? In males it is the testosterone, and in females it is the estrogen. Then which vitamin associated with maintaining healthy skin, vision, immune function may also play a role in slowing down the aging process because of its antioxidant or free radical eating properties? This is vitamin C. Next, which mineral associated with bone health also plays a role in aging by contributing to oxidative stress, and this mineral starts decomposing in the body? Which one is this? The maker of bones in the body, the calcium. So the answer over here is calcium. I would encourage you to solve such science quizzes given in the Hindu, and also some of them are featured in the UPSC essential sections in Indian Express. That will help you a lot. Now, one more question, that this diagram is given and the illuminous part over here, the glowing structure, they are made to be identified. So can you see they are forming caps of the entire chromosome? If they are forming the caps and they are forming basically at the tail ends, then they are known as the telomeres. The central junction is known as centromere. So this is telomere, this is centromere, and this is one chromosome. Alright, one which contains all the genetic information of a body. Next is, we will be doing the mapping of Cambodia. This has been in news. So Cambodia, if you talk about it, is it a landlocked country? Not at all. It opens up to Gulf of Thailand, so it is not a landlocked country. The major river flowing in Cambodia is the Mekong River, which originates from the Tibetan Plateau and drains where? It drains to the South China Sea. Does it drain from Cambodia? No, it drains from Vietnam. This is also very, very important. Mekong River is very important for us because we have signed Mekong Ganga cooperation between 6 countries. So one is India and the other 5 are the ASEAN countries. These ASEAN countries, can you name them? It's Myanmar, it's Cambodia, it's Thailand, it's Laos, it's Vietnam. So all these countries together make the Mekong Ganga cooperation. Now, talking about some of the water bodies, as you can see, Mekong River flows and drains in the South China Sea, but the capital city of Cambodia falls at the intersection of the Tonle Sap River and the Mekong River. This is where the Phnom Penh, the capital city of Cambodia, is situated. Another important, very important World Heritage Site situated in Cambodia, which is also considered now the 8th wonder of the world and was in news recently. This is the Angkor Wat Temple. Angkor Wat Temple, which is situated somewhere here. The largest lake that you have here is the Tonle Sap Lake, and one interesting fact about Tonle Sap is that once the water level goes up, the river starts flowing backward in this case. Now, we have talked about Cambodia mapping, we have talked about the Mekong River. Moving on to the next topic, this is I4C, or the Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center. As the name suggests, this is one center for coordinating all the activities. We have already read about cyber security and the related institutions. So, we have got we have got our National Cyber Crime Reporting Portal. So, do you know this is managed by Ministry of Electronics, this is managed by Ministry of Home Affairs. So, there are multiple institutions working for cyber security. We need convergence for effective management. So, that coordination is bring forward by Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, where it brings together multiple crime related agencies, investigation related agencies, for example NIA, for example CBI, for example CERTIN, and it brings all of them together in a platform to share data. Intelligence sharing will be done among all of them with the help of this I4C, and this will help us to strengthen our cyber security measures. This was created in the year 2018, and ministry is very important. I have already told you the trick in the previous analyst. Wherever you see the term crime, cyber crime, then it is not created by Ministry of Electronics but by Ministry of Home Affairs. So, this is also created by Ministry of Home Affairs. And the last snippet of the day is about the Chabahar port. So, Chabahar has been attacked recently, so therefore we are reading it. Where is Chabahar located? It is located in the Iran. In fact, it is the only seaport of Iran, oceanic port of Iran. And where does it share its oceanic border to? To the Gulf of Oman. This is the Persian Gulf and this is the Gulf of Oman. Can you name this strait which is connecting both of them? Can you name it? So, okay, this is about Gulf of Oman. Now, this is very important for India because it is situated about 150 kilometers west to the Gwadar port, one with Pakistan having some of the Chinese incursions as well. Now, in order to move to Afghanistan, we wouldn't be taking the help of Pakistan or its ports anymore. We can just go directly from Gulf of Oman and then we can move to the Chabahar port, and then we can directly, of course, a highway has been created, the Zahedan and Zaranj Dilaram highway of Afghanistan. We can reach out to Afghanistan directly by bypassing the Pakistan. This is the significance of Chabahar port, strategic significance of course. And then if you talk about multiple ports that are located in the Arabian Sea, the Kandla port, Gwadar port, Chabahar port and Bandar Abbas. Kindly remember them in the order and arrangement from west to east. Then you must also know that Chabahar port is also getting created with the help of India, help and aid of India. Chabahar port is broadly divided into two docks. One is the Shahid Kalantari and the other one is Shahid Beheshti. And India has been working for creation of Shahid Beheshti. So, these are the two docks, and these questions can be asked in the form of places in news. So, this is all about today's discussion. I hope you have enjoyed it, and do study very well for your upcoming examination. All the very best. See you again.